Hi, here's another animation review. This animation is from Dora on Twitter. Let's take a look.
There's nothing behind me. I'm a witcher, I'd have heard it. Just like I can hear your heart, which is pounding, like a liar's.
Cool, so pretty good stuff. I have a few notes. So first note I thought was immediately we're very straight T-pose to camera, which is obviously done for contrast into your next poses. But I do think that we could probably start in something more 3/4 like this, which is a bit more appealing. And I also think that because of this large movement at the start, which I don't think is entirely necessary, we can definitely start in a pose like this and reduce that first movement that you do. These holds that you're doing, it feels like you're kind of hitting, so it feels like you're coming over and then almost hitting a wall and then coming back and then holding a bit too much. Kind of want it more of a, almost a head shake, you know? A nice clean S shape.
There's nothing behind me.
I think this one will work if you come back, because you're coming back into a more still pose, but it's just that first one where it feels like it kind of hits a wall in the spacing. I'd keep that flowing a little bit more. Okay, I think this gesture with the eyebrows, it feels like he's barely changing the amplitude of his voice. He's behind me. If he was going behind me, then maybe I think you could increase that eyebrow amplitude to the amount you have it, but I really think you could just keep it quite subtle, the amount you move it. Something more like this. And also settle sooner about here. Just a few frames earlier. Because you have less spacing by reducing that eyebrow, it will allow you to settle sooner but still keep the same kind of visual rhythm in there. And then the other note here was just to open up these eyes a bit more. You can see if I draw the white in here, we just want to get this skin that is above the eye up to then make the eyes a bit more intense. I know the red eyes right now are making it a lot more intense. It's generally a good idea to keep those eyelids quite open, but you can still bring the eyebrows down and you just end up with this nice kind of quite graphic shape through there, as opposed to having this and then this. You have this going into that. I feel like he's going, I'm a witcher, and I'm missing that shape. He's kind of going from this kind of resting mouth pose to the M shape, and I think you need a shape in between those. This movement made me realize that it looks like you are just pivoting with the neck, which, you know, you might think is the right thing to do because we're just seeing the head and, you know, you probably get away with it, but it does feel like you're lacking the chest movement in there from this pose. It just feels like if you're doing a big movement back with the head, have a little more movement, so it maybe ends up more in this kind of realm over here, and maybe a little more up down in there as well. It just feels a little bit too isolated to the head movement. So I'd take a quick pass on the body and make sure that that is doing what the body would be doing. You'll definitely feel that in the animation, rather than just feeling like it's just on a pole and then rotating off of that pole. So he's saying which so I like to get my ch sounds to just bring in these mouth corners. Which But you see here, he's on the ch sound, he's going out. So I do the reverse of this, where your ch goes in, like almost like you're doing an oo shape. The ch is almost that amount of intensity in with the corners of the mouth. But then you're obviously seeing the upper lip and probably lower lip opened a bit more, and still having that intensity in the pose, as opposed to an oo shape, which is just trying to get that circular. I thought this eyebrow move here felt a little isolated. It's mostly because this part of the eyebrow is moving a lot more than any of the rest of it. We'd probably go more for something a bit more like this in there, just so this bit moves up a little more. Maybe this rotates down, and then also get these eyes opening with that change from white. It's not the most helpful color, is it? And then same goes on the other side, you know, we need a little more lift in here, a little more of a raise in this eye. It just feels a bit isolated to this side right now. And with that, when you're opening the top, probably do a little bit of an open on the bottom as well, just to not have it feeling so isolated. Maybe not quite as much as I've drawn, but you get the idea. Kind of holding a her sound here. So I think you could open it a little more. It feels a little underplayed right now. how much you're opening it. And it never really seems to go past this level of open, which if you were talking, it definitely would at least get to something like this. I think that would help with the visual rhythm in your piece. So I think here what I mean by relaxity is you're doing a t, and I'm not feeling that release of the mouth to make the t. It just kind of goes into a th, and then I'm not feeling the little open and relax of the mouth, because this is almost like an anticipation pose in the lip sync, which would then be relaxed when if you just act it out, you'll see that you kind of bring that upper lip up and anticipate for the t sound. Don't animate it as if you're acting it out, because you'll definitely be overdoing it, but maybe film some reference of yourself saying this and see what you do when you say the t that he says in this dialogue. And then here, and I guess this is a general note that applies throughout, it's all very on the same lines, and there's not a lot of opening out of the face and kind of favoring one side or creating asymmetry in the pose, which will add to the appeal. I think you could open things up a bit more, get this eyebrow raised, get this eye a bit more open than this one. If there's bend controls in the face, maybe push this one out or move this one over or move this one over. You know, you don't have to go crazy with it, but even just moving this jaw over a bit and getting this mouth more onto one side of the face will help a lot. And also getting a little bit more of that classic DreamWorks eye thing where you're opening up one brow and, you know, creating this flow through the brows just to get this shape throughout the pose. Yeah, a similar note to what I mentioned before with the eye intensity, just having them a bit more open, especially here when these brows open up and then settle down. You can settle back down with the brow, but you can have your eyes almost fully open, but your brows down. And I think a lot of people will, because the brows are coming down, close the eyelids a bit more. It's a good rule of thumb, but I'd only close them very slightly. You know, you don't want to give him sleepy eyes just because his eyebrows are down. That will just take away the intensity of the eyes. And then the same note here with the ch sound. And then go out for the is. It will give you some nice contrast in the lip sync there. And then here, I think you're doing an O shape because there's an O in pounding, but actually when you say pounding, it's an ah, it's a pa. So you want to make sure you get that ah shape before the oo of pound, then go into a more kind of closed oo shape. And then I also think with this moment where he says pounding, this is kind of one of the biggest moments in the dialogue. So you really want to open up those eyes, and as we're opening the mouth wide to get the pa, then we want to open the rest of the face and just get that squash throughout the entire face. So bringing the eyes more open, I think this is the moment where you want to do that the most in this piece. And at the moment they're kind of doing a little movement, but I really think you could push that. And then here, just again talking about kind of getting rid of this information here, which isn't all too useful. You kind of can make it a lot more graphic and get this kind of thing where the important things here that are telling us stuff are the eyebrows and the white of the eyes, getting a clear read on that. It will make him feel a lot more intense throughout. Here, I think it was nice that we are raising the sides of the upper lip to get that kind of grrr intensity in there. Lar. And again, that overall note that I don't need to repeat. But yeah, it's nice. It's honestly mostly there. I think these things are quite polishy things, and you could definitely take another pass at refining that lip sync and just making sure that all the shapes that you need are there, that you're hearing in the dialogue, and then just making sure that it feels like he is connected to a body and that is moving him. You don't have to go crazy and move him all over the place, but especially for the bigger movements in your piece. Overall, we want to make sure that we have visual rhythm in this by not doing the same thing too many times. So you want to do those little raises of the eyebrows, but you know, you want to also vary the timing, and you want to vary the amount of spacing that they do, the amplitude of those movements, kind of in line with the dialogue as a basis for the visual rhythm in your animation. And that also goes for the lip sync and the amount that you're opening the mouth. But yeah, a little more asymmetry, and I think it's pretty much there. Nice job. See ya.